Hi, everyone, and welcome back to another deep dive here on Westferry Times. I'm your host, and today we're really getting into the thick of it, European summer travel. Specifically, we want to unpack what's going on with Ryanair, the budget airline giant, especially with this huge surge in summer demand. We'll look at why flight prices might be going up, flight availability, and Ryanair's game plan through all this. And guiding us through this complex picture, we're joined by an expert aviation industry analyst. A very warm welcome to the deep dive.
Great to be here. Thanks for having me.
And of course, a big hello to everyone watching Westferry Times. Thanks for tuning in. So let's dive right in. Ryanair recently posted, record passenger numbers, over 200 million last year. Sounds amazing. But then their profits actually fell quite a bit. That seems counterintuitive. How does that work?
Yeah, it's an interesting dynamic. They definitely saw that big 9% jump in passengers hitting 200.2 million, which is huge. But you're right, profits dropped 16%, down to about 1.61 billion. And a key piece of that puzzle really is that their average fares were actually down by 7%.
Okay, right. So more people flying, but each person paying a bit less on average. That explains the profit part. But what caused that massive surge in passengers in the first place? Why were so many people choosing Ryanair?
Well, there are a few things feeding into it. First, that post-pandemic urge to travel. It's still really strong. People are just eager to get away.
Definitely feel that.
Second, Ryanair's network is just vast. They fly almost everywhere in Europe, which is incredibly convenient for a lot of travelers.
Yeah.
And third, and this is quite interesting, the sort of wider global picture might be playing a part. Maybe some hesitation about travel to other regions, perhaps the U.S., for instance, could be funneling more people towards European holidays.
That's a really good point. Global events influencing budget travel choices within Europe. Okay, so they had lower profits despite the passenger numbers. What's the plan to turn that around? Are fares going up?
It looks like it. Ryanair has indicated pretty clearly that they plan to raise airfares. They're talking about increases of around 5 to 6% during the peak summer season in 2025. It's a direct response, really, to try and recover some of that lost ground on profitability from the lower fares.
Right. So something for listeners to keep in mind if they're planning ahead for next summer, expect slightly higher prices. Now, another big factor in prices and just getting a seat is, how many planes they actually have. Ryanair's been expecting a delivery of new Boeing 737 MAX jets. How's that going?
Ah, yes, the deliveries. That's become a significant challenge. It really affects their capacity planning. They were supposed to get 57 of these new, more efficient Boeing 737 MAX 8200s by March next year. But because of ongoing delays from Boeing, they're now expecting maybe only 40 to 45 in that time frame.
Okay, wow. So potentially 12 to 17 fewer planes than planned. That must impact things quite a bit. How does that affect their operations? And I guess more importantly for travelers, what does it mean for us?
The biggest impact is it limits their ability to add more flights. Fewer new planes means less capacity growth, especially during those peak summer months when demand is highest.
Right.
And when you have that strong demand running up against limited supply, well, basic economics kicks in. It tends to push ticket prices up. It creates more of a seller's market, you could say. Airlines have more pricing power.
Fewer seats, high demand equals potentially higher fares. Got it. But even with these aircraft delays, Ryanair hasn't stopped expanding. They've announced new routes. What's the strategy there?
Yeah, that's right. It shows they're still pushing forward. They've announced 7 new routes just from London Stansted, including some interesting ones like Bodrum and Turkey and Reggio Calabria down in Italy. The strategy seems to be about capitalizing on that really strong summer demand wherever they can find pockets of opportunity, and also attracting maybe a wider range of customers with new destinations.
So diversifying a bit, finding new markets. Does adding routes like this help manage the pressure on their existing popular routes?
It potentially can, yes. Spreading passengers across more destinations can help ease congestion on the really high demand routes. It helps distribute that traffic more evenly. And it's worth noting they're also increasing flight frequencies on about 30 other existing London routes too. So they are trying to meet that demand where possible.
Okay, so a mix of adding new options and bolstering existing popular ones. It sounds like quite a balancing act. Let's switch back to the financials for a moment. They also announced a big share buyback, 750 million euro. What does that signal?
A share buyback of that size is pretty significant. Essentially, Ryanair is using its cash reserves to buy its own stock off the market. This usually sends a couple of messages. One, it signals confidence from the company's leadership in their own financial health and future profitability. They feel they have cash to spare.
Okay.
And two, it's often seen as a way to return value to shareholders. By reducing the number of shares out there, it can increase earnings per share and, potentially, the share price itself. It reinforces investor trust.
So a sign of strength, a nod to the shareholders. Tied into share price, there's also talk of a potentially huge bonus for the CEO, Michael O'Leary, if the shares hit certain targets.
Yes, that's part of the picture, too. That potential bonus, near $100 million, I believe, is tied to specific share price performance goals. From a corporate governance perspective, these kinds of large, performance-based incentives are designed to, well, align the CEO's interests directly with those of the shareholders. The idea is if the company performs well enough to significantly boost the share price, benefiting investors, then the executive leadership shares in that success.
Right, tying reward directly to shareholder value. Okay, so bringing this all together for our listeners who are maybe thinking about booking flights, what are the key things they should take away from all this Ryanair news, especially for summer travel?
I think the main thing for consumers right now is to anticipate, realistically, potentially higher fares, especially for peak summer and likely into next year given their plans.
Okay, book early.
Definitely book well in advance if your dates are fixed. That's probably the best strategy. Also, flexibility helps. If you can shift your travel dates, even by a few days, or consider maybe a less mainstream destination served by Ryanair, you might find better deals. Explore those new routes, perhaps.
That's really useful, practical advice. Be prepared, book early, or be flexible. So, as we wrap up this deep dive on Ryanair, any final thoughts on what this all means in the bigger picture?
I think what's happening with Ryanair, the high demand, the capacity issues with plane deliveries, the pricing strategies, the route adjustments, it really mirrors broader challenges and trends across the whole aviation industry currently. It's this constant balancing act between managing capacity, meeting demand, and maintaining profitability in a complex environment. For you, the traveler, staying informed about these dynamics and being adaptable with your plans was probably more crucial than ever right now.
Absolutely. Adaptability seems key. Well, this has been incredibly insightful. Thank you so much for breaking it all down for us today on the deep dive.
My pleasure. Good talking with you.
And a huge thank you to all of you for joining us here on Westferry Times. We hope this gives you a clearer picture as you plan your travels. We'll be back soon with more analysis. Until then, safe travels.